before, which I think was probably good given what we were talking about. Right? Okay, so we got Isabel joined us as well. So there's 4 of us on the call. And Isabel, just to bring you up to speed today, we're going to talk about listing agreements, okay?
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so guys, I just want to start with some basics. It's really important because we've had some agents with some significant disappointments to complete a rather simple document called the listing agreement, but do it so completely that you now have an ironclad contract with your seller to sell their houses. The disappointments we've had from listing agents since I joined the company last year and a half, I actually had an agent who did a wonderful, wonderful job of all kinds of advertising, staging, brought objects into the house to make it look great, photography, showings, feedback to the seller, generating offers, only to end up not getting paid on anything. And the reason why is their listing agreement wasn't accurate. It wasn't enforceable because they didn't complete it properly. And so I thought today I would just pull up a listing agreement, and I'm going to go through each and every section. And it's very short. This is the best part about a listing agreement. It's so small that we're going to focus on the agreement itself, that I'm going to go through and tell you what needs to be on that listing agreement in order to make it enforceable. Is that a deal?
Sounds good.
Sure, thank you.
Perfect, everybody. So let me try share screen and let's see what happens next. Oh my goodness. If I could only figure out share screen. Oh my God. Oh, here we go. And I pulled it up earlier, so hopefully it's here and waiting for me, and it is. Okay, can everybody see we're in dotloop?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you for acknowledging.
Yes.
Because I can't tell if you see something or not. So thank you for verbalizing. Okay, so I simply went into the templates and I went into GSMLS listing sale, okay, which is, I'm going to focus on the Garden State MLS listing since almost 98% of our business goes through Garden State MLS, okay? And in that folder, you can see all these documents. I just recently, and Sam, we need to get it fillable, but I put it in there anyway. I just updated the coming soon form, as you can see, and it's got a date next to it. Garden State MLS coming soon, because they just updated it. And they kind of made it look like the old delayed showing form, if you recall. You both have been in the business for a while, so you probably recall that form. So it's a new form that's in there. It's important. But today, we're just going to focus on this listing agreement form. And when I open that up, do you all see it, Sam, or do I have a problem?
Yep.
No, we see it.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so I didn't do an autofill. I didn't do anything. And what I have here is how it comes populated. So it does fill in the listing broker, which is, of course, is our company, which is Keller Williams Town Square Realty, because that is who is taking this listing. You are acting on behalf of, as an agent of, for our company. Our office address, full address, 222 Mount Airy Road, Basking Ridge, 07920. Our office telephone number, which is only our main telephone number, not if you have another extension, I don't care. It's our office telephone number, which is 908-766-0085. Our fax number is there. I wouldn't even know what it is because I don't play around with fax machines anymore, but apparently that might be our fax number. And so that populates. And then you'll notice in section 3, it automatically populates with Keller Williams Town Square Realty. And over in section 4, there's 2 boxes, yes, that are automatically populated and a no, okay? And then pretty much there's nothing else auto-populated. So let's talk about this form and what needs to be on it. In New Jersey, there's something called contract law, and contract law requires a few things. It requires dates, it requires signatures, it requires consideration. Consideration in this case is going to be the amount of commission that's possible to be paid. So what is important on this form is as follows. In section 1, the owner's name, the owner's current address, which may be different than the property address, okay? I need either a telephone number or an email. As an office, we need to know how to contact that person. God forbid something happens to you. So we need something in there. And very importantly, the property that's going to be listed, which goes into property. Okay, that's pretty straightforward and no-brainer, but those are important pieces. Further.
Question.
Yes.
So if we're dealing with properties that is, like an executor, so do we need an extra documentation to attach to this, or in file or something? Because, when someone passed away, nobody's going to sign it.
It's called letters of testamentary.
That's right. Yeah. So do we?
Testamentary, and they are obtained by whoever is going to be the conservator, executor, or administrator of the
Yes.
estate. They are given. They are secured from the probate surrogate's office of a particular county in the state of New Jersey.
But what about if it's I saw some properties that are like under trust, it's registered like some XYZ trust.
Well, we need to all understand there's a big difference between trust, power of attorney, and estate.
Yeah.
Okay, and those are basic concepts. So there are arrangements made for people that are living, and there are arrangements made for people that are no longer with us. And so in a state, they are no longer with us. They no longer have the power to represent themselves. If they've left behind a will, the will dictates and directs who's going to manage the estate. If a will has not been left behind, then it will be determined by the surrogate's court as to what happens next. But in all cases, the surrogate's court is either going to issue a administratorship or an executor, but they're going to issue letters of testamentary to determine who has the right to sell that property and represent it. In some cases, when they die intestate, which means they die without a will, the court will appoint somebody, and then the sale itself is going to have to be approved by the court after a contract is secured. So there's all kinds of things. I don't want to get off topic with the listing agreement, but what you need to have in your hand, if the person is deceased, who is the owner of record on that property, so there is an estate, you need letters of testamentary, to be succinct. Now, power of attorney means the person is still living. You cannot have a deceased person and have somebody that was their power of attorney and tell you they have the right to list the property, because power of attorney dies with the person who is no longer with us. Okay, it no longer is in effect. All right, but you could have somebody that is incapacitated for whatever reason, and they have a power of attorney that has the right to act on their behalf, and you need to see the power of attorney document to determine that one of those things they have the right to do is to sell their property. Because just because somebody has a power of attorney doesn't mean they have the rights to sell that property. Power of attorney is very specific in their, and they outline what authorities the person has. If somebody is incapacitated, no longer can act on their own behalf due to an operation, whatever the case may be, they go into a coma, it doesn't really matter. The courts, the surrogate court, also manages for living people when they cannot act on their own behalf and watch out for them. And in those cases, conservatorships are determined by the courts, and there'll be a conservator stated who will present themselves to you. And with the conservatorship, there is legal documentation to prove that as well. For listing properties where people are getting divorced, and there's divorce decrees, property settlements, whatever, those documents, regardless of what it is, if you cannot see in the tax record the person that's signing the document that it looks like they own it and they're not the one signing the form, then you need to take it a step further. And you need to get the proper documentation to make sure that this property is not fraudulently being listed. We do not engage in fraud. So,
noted. Thank you.
Okay, great. So we got through property. On the right-hand side in section 1, the sale price, you see listing price, and it says here, sale and rental. If this is not for rental, I request that you put NA in there, not applicable, okay? And you put the listing price. If it doesn't have a listing price on the listing agreement, it's not an enforceable agreement, it's a void agreement, okay? So that's an area where an agent made a mistake and the property's not properly listed. If you handwrite it, if you type everything, but you handwrite in the listing price because you waited to meet with the person before it was determined, no problem. But you need to have them initial any additions that they add to the agreement. The seller must initial it. They
Okay.
must also initial any changes that is made, okay? Very key one is section 2, the term of the agreement, the start date and the end date. This is imperative. Without a start date and an end date, it is also not an enforceable agreement. Had another agent that didn't do that. It needs to be accurate and correct, and when there's a correction, I don't care, that's no problem. You can amend and correct whatever you want. You need the seller's initials in all instances where something's been corrected. Section 3. This is where your name belongs. Okay, you are acting on behalf of Keller Williams Town Square Realty. You are licensed to do so. Further down, we have here, how are you going to be representing? I want to explain what each one of these categories is so that we're not confused. If we are acting as the seller or landlord's agent only, you do not have the ability to do an open house and pick up clients. You do not have the ability to sell this property to anybody in our office as dual agent. Okay? We do not do business that way. You'd have to come to me if you're going to only be a seller's agent, because I need to understand the scenario. We may not take the listing because we are cutting down. We have such large market share, we're actually harming the seller. So in all cases, I expect that we're going to be a seller's agent and a dual disclosed agent if the opportunity arises. The opportunity would arise if you're as a listing agent generate a buyer, or if somebody from our office brings a buyer, not from Keller Williams Metropolitan or from Keller Williams, down in Metuchen. I'm talking our office. Keller Williams Town Square Realty is the only case we'll be dual agents. We do not act as transaction brokers on a listing, period. Okay? Section 4, very important. Okay, so the box.
Can I ask you a question? I'm sorry.
Of course.
So what you just said, so only with our office does the dual agency?
Correct.
Only with our office?
Yes,
Okay.
and the reason why, and I'm glad I mentioned it because it sounds like there may be a question in your voice.
Yes.
Which is fine, which is great that it surfaces. Each Keller Williams office is independently owned and operated. I happen to have worked for Weichert Realtors prior to coming and working for you. Jim Weichert owns all the offices in northern New Jersey. He doesn't own every Weichert office in New Jersey. Some of them are franchises, but he owns a lot of he owns a lot of offices. And so if I did business, I worked in Chester, and if I did business with the Mendham office or the Burnsville office, I would be acting as a dual disclosed agent. However, again, Keller Williams operates as independently owned and operated offices. Our Basking Ridge office, while owned by Michael, and Morristown is owned by Michael, those offices are still independent. They are not, we do not act, we are not the same companies. We are separate, distinct companies. So dual agency only applies when a member of our office is involved. Ourselves are a member of our office.
Thank you so much.
You're very
Okay,
welcome.
thanks.
Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so section number 4, compensation. Subagency does not exist, so that is always an automatic no. Okay, so that we're all clear on that. Buyers brokers, of course, and transaction brokers. We have a policy in our office that we will honor transaction brokers. So what I expect to see here in this blank spot where you see the @ sign and it says compensation, very small letters underneath, I want to know what that compensation is. And in all cases, without exception, unless you speak with me first, and then there are very few exceptions, very few, we pay out 2.5% to all buyers brokers, a minimum. You want to pay more? That's fine. That's wonderful. That's grand. But just because you had to reduce your commission does not give you the opportunity to reduce the commission we pay to buyers brokers. Our office policy is very firm. We pay out 2.5% to all buyers brokers. The few exceptions are as follows: new construction. Okay, and I mean new, not rehab construction. I mean brand new from the ground up construction. Or If you find in the town that you are operating in that all other brokers, at least 60% of the brokers are paying out less than 2.5%, and you bring that to me with the proof out of the MLS that that is the case, we can talk about reducing what we pay out to buyers brokers in that area, okay? Under no other circumstances will we pay less than 2.5%. And again, that's in our office policy. So I expect to see 2.5%, the percent sign, because I want to know what the 2.5 is. And then I want to see minus $150. Again, you can charge more than $150, but our office policy on all listings for sale is $150 MLS fee. Okay? Underneath transaction broker, if your seller would like to pay less to a transaction broker, we have to pay a minimum of 1.5%. Again, minus $150. So that is what I expect to see in these blocks here. It's not automatically populated because there are instances where there may be a deviation, new construction, or whatever the case may be. Down here, underneath the rental, if you had NA here, it wouldn't be filled out. If this was a rental agreement and you had NA for sale, then you would have to fill this out. You can use the same listing agreement for both sale and rental at the same time if that's what's happening with your particular property. Next section, section 5, very important. This is the total commission that the seller/landlord will pay. Total commission. So this is where our office policy is. We have 5%, okay? If you want something less than 5%, you need to come and talk to me, all right? But 5% would go in here. If you want to do variable rate is when, if you sell it, you would give them a break on the commission that they would have to pay the total, and then you have to publish it in the MLS that that's happened. You have the authority, without coming to me as your broker, to cut it by 0.5%. So what you would see in here is 5%, make sure you've got the percent sign, okay? And then in parens, you might like to put, if listing agent brings buyer, 4.5%. You can do all of that without my permission. You do anything else you need, you know, or anything higher. But if you want to do anything else, you need to come to me. So if you have a 7% commission, oh, that's fabulous. And you don't need to come in and talk to me about it. But anything that's less than what our policies are, you do need to speak with me first. And please don't come and speak to me after you've already spoken to your seller. It puts everybody in a very bad position. So make sure it's forethought, not afterthought. Section 6, we talk about whether or not a Garden State lockbox is going to be on the property. Check the box, that's appropriate. The next place we need to fill out, it says, on this listing, the broker is offering a commission split of blank minus blank, okay, to potential cooperating brokers. So here it would be 2.5%, and then here would be minus 150, okay, in accordance with our policies. And then, of course, you're going to need the seller's signatures. You should sign the agreement, put your name, put your MLS ID here, and then you need to make sure that you tag from my signature and you fill in my name here, and that you send it to me, share it with me via .loop, tagged from my signature, and I will sign it. As your broker, I sign the following forms. I sign all listing agreements, whether they are MLS listing agreements or exclusives. For exclusive listings, I sign waivers of broker cooperation. I also sign changes to listing agreements, which is in the form of change forms. And everything else you can handle, you know, I also probably will sign referral forms that you have. Other than that, you do not need to come to me for signatures in advance. If you have any questions, of course, you can always ask me. What you may not have read in the listing agreement, and I need to finish this up in 8 minutes because Michael's got a conference call. I just want to let you guys know that. He's got Mondays with Michael, and I don't want to overrun his time frame. What may matter most to you is you should know all the contract language in the agreement. Some of you never get to this page to know that it actually exists. But the ones that really should matter to you are broker protections in particular. So broker protections, we'll just look at that together for just a second. it talks about that the owner agrees to pay the listing broker a commission if the owner, acting on the owner's own behalf within 180 days after the expiration date, sells or agrees to sell their property to a buyer that was shown the property while we were the broker, or to any person during the listing term. So when we have an exclusive right to sell, if the seller goes off and becomes their own salesperson, they still have to pay us a commission. That's what exclusive right to sell means. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. That's one of the paragraphs that most people usually have a question about. All right. Here in paragraph 8, you may wish to protect yourself with a commission being paid by the tenant. If the property is rented instead of sold, you can also make sure you take care of that in a lease agreement, so you don't have to worry about it so much. Does anybody have any questions with the listing agreement?
No, that's good.
Okay. The only other one that I really want to go through right now, I hope that the screen took you backwards. Did it, everybody?
Yes.
Yep.
Good. I want to look at the exclusive listing agreement for just a second. As you know, a waiver of broker cooperation should be completed with an exclusive listing. Why? A waiver of broker cooperation states that you're not going into the MLS, that's a lesser population, you could be doing yourself harm. It's all those protections to us, and that's why we care about it. But you fill out the exclusive listing, obviously it needs the seller's name, the property address, you know, the right to list the property for how much is the property listed for, the term, the start date and the stop date, all very important things, and the commission. Okay, so it's got all that in there. But here's what I want you to see, and I got to look at it. Do you see this statement here, at which time the property will be converted into a multiple listing? Does everybody see this here?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
That means you're also filling out a Garden State or MLS, theoretically Garden State, an MLS listing agreement at the same time you're doing an exclusive. Are we all very clear about that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I look for both of those. Down here, what we pay, people seem to get a little confused as to what we put in here. Typically, cooperating dual agency, that would be within our own office. I would expect that we'd be paying somebody in our own office to sell our listings 2.5%. I would expect that you would be paid 2.5%, but it could be more because you've done a really great job of negotiating and you've gotten yourself an 8% listing and you're going to walk away with, you know, 5 and give away 3. That's fabulous. Okay. And transaction broker, on an exclusive, you're not required to pay a transaction broker from my perspective. Okay. And basically you just need to get it signed. Again, any changes need to be initialed. And all of those pieces on the listing agreement are very important. Any questions, guys?
No, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions you'd like to cover in the next 4 minutes? Perfect.
You were very good.
All right, you guys. Love you. Thank you so much. If you can, jump
Thank
to
you.
Michael's call, okay?
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Sam.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Sam.